This podcast was recorded on the ancient lands of the Gadigal peoples of the Eora Nation in Australia. I wish to acknowledge their rich and continuing culture and pay respect to any First Nations people from anywhere in the world who may come to hear this podcast. We hope that we may all come to walk with gentle feet, strong minds, and compassionate hearts in this global village. Hello, it's Maggie Dent here, parenting educator, author, and champion of boys and men. And this is The Good Enough Dad, a podcast where I chat with committed, caring, sometimes confused, and often funny dads about all the ways they've discovered to be good enough at this parenting gig. When I told my 4 sons I was doing a second season of The Good Enough Dad, they had a couple of requests. One, I needed to get a surfer on. Tick! Actually, I got 2, so if you've missed my chat with Glenn Hall and Ace Buchanan, I suggest you go back and check it out. Secondly, they wanted to hear from an AFL footballer, and given there are different club favourites in my family, someone's still going to get bummed by any choice I make. But being from WA, Western Australia, when I think AFL, my mind automatically turns to someone who's been a bit of a big deal in my home state, a favourite son of the Fremantle Dockers, Shaun McManus. Shaun joined the inaugural Dockers team in 1995 and played with them until 2008. He was co-captain for a couple of years during that time, and he was the second player to reach 200 games with the club before retiring in 2008 after 228 games. He's been described as the AFL's uphill skiing champion due to his courage, persistence and resilience in overcoming 2 knee reconstructions. Of course, that's with tongue in cheek. Shaunie and I have known each other for about 15 years, as I'm regularly invited onto his breakfast radio show on Nova in Perth, Nat and Shaun. He's been doing that show pretty much since he retired from the AFL. And every time I've joined him on Nova, Shaun asked me a parenting advice or a question. And he and his wife Meegan have 4 kids, all now adolescents. 3 sons, Lachlan 23, Cooper 19, Oliver 17, and their daughter Sunny who's 14. Shaun, welcome to The Good Enough Dad.
Oh, Maggie, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. You know, when you come in all the time, apart from asking you questions on a regular basis, and a couple of times I've had to call you because I felt a bit overwhelmed, but the other thing I look forward to is when you're in here is your baking. It's outstanding. I love the slices you bring in.
It's really hard when I'm in a hotel room now, but anyway. So usually I ask dads what their morning was like in their family home.
Yeah.
But you being a breakfast host means you probably miss all the mornings. Poor Meegan. So you would have no idea what goes on in the morning. But are all the kids at home with you guys at the moment, or have some flow in the coop?
Yeah, no, we still got everybody at home. My oldest, you mentioned Lachlan, he's 23, but, you know, just the cost of everything, it just doesn't work for him to be moving out at this stage. And it's really funny, Maggie, in that it's sooner or later it's going to happen, and you've gone through it with the boys, but I reckon I'll be really sad.
Yeah.
And on a side note of that, so I think it was last year. Start of the year, I was going down to the beach for a swim, and then Lachlan came down to join me at one stage, and he joined in and he was doing some laps, and then I got out, and Meegan, my wife, was she came down with the other kids. And when I got there, my younger son, Oliver's going, "Oh, have you told Mum that Lachlan's moving out?" And I said, I just went along. I just knew he was full of shit. So I just went along with it at the time. I said, yeah, you heard Lachlan's moving out today. And because previously, leading up to that, Meegan was always having a go at, when are you kids going to leave home? And we're sick of paying for everything and blah, blah, blah. You don't pitch in. And then Meegan was like, "Are you joking?" I said, "Well, you keep telling him that you need him to move out and he's costing too much money and stuff." Anyway, she started crying, and she didn't stop crying all bloody night until we got home. And I said to Lachlan, "Oh, can you just tell your mum you're not moving out?" And which he did. But then later at night, it was brought up. She burst out in tears again. It was really funny, actually, Maggie.
Oh, look, I have 4 of the boys, as you know, and So two of them are roosters. So they're the feisty ones, heightened sense of their own importance, a bit bossy and a bit whatever. And two that are lambs that are a little more gentle. I couldn't wait for the roosters to leave. But I was like Meegan when the lambs left. Oh my God, it was just, I still remember it. I cried quite a lot. So it depends who you got in your house, I reckon. Okay. So you grew up in Willetton in Perth.
Yeah.
And I know you have a big, close family. So tell me a bit about the siblings and your mum and dad and, the family structure and what that crazy childhood might have been like.
Oh, I had a great childhood on reflection. In Willetton, it was, real working class little suburb, and it was new at the time. And I moved, mum and dad, we moved into this cul-de-sac, and the street next door, my cousins moved into, and their cousins, so on my auntie's side, who wasn't blood related until she married, I guess, they had their cousin, she had her brother, so therefore their cousins in my street as well. So it was kind of like second cousins in my street, plus my cousins in the next street. We're from a big family over here in WA, and my grandmother's side, the Millers, they originally come from, and there's everyone's got 12 kids and 15 kids and all that kind of stuff, going back to my parents' ages, and that therefore, everyone then had 6 kids and everyone had 5 kids, and I'm one of 5. So we grew up in a place where we go to grandma's on a Sunday, and there would be 30 grandkids all playing with each other. Next door to my grandmother's place was her sister, Peggy, and that whole line of family were there, and I think they had 15 or 16 kids, so then they had all their grandkids, and so the fence used to get torn down, and there was just a mass group of people. So I was fortunate enough to grow up in, just heaps of people. It was so much fun. When I know that we're going to grandma's almost every Sunday, I knew that was going to be fun. So
and
it was awesome.
Of things you got up to. What did you get up to? I mean, because I remember Willetton still had bush and things, didn't it? It wasn't exactly.
Yeah. So we jumped out the back of our house was a park, which is just bushland, and so you'd be going out, and there was a big creek down the street, and we're going out and trying to catch yabbies or juggies out of the creek all the time. Sometimes we'd fish bikes out of there because some kids would steal bikes around the area and toss them in there. Always playing sport with the people in and around my street, with my cousins in the following street, but also our second cousins who were in the street. It was all sport. I do remember just going out and exploring those bushlands and like sand dunes that were around the place. And for some reason, I always remember if we were out, there was a place that was close enough, Canning Vale it was, and that was a lot of, in my mind, sand dunes. And we would get on our bikes and we would ride through the bushland, and we'd end up there. But I do remember people being out there on dirt bikes, and for some reason I remember feeling like we were getting chased all the time by people on dirt bikes or cars, and it's just really wild. Yeah.
Oh, that does actually sound like a childhood where kids actually were able to roam a lot more freely. Let's be honest, Shaun, that's one of the things we've lost is that neighbourhoods and kids having freedom. And we know it's compromising their resilience and well-being. It's pretty hard to wind it back. But the other thing we've done is we don't have as many kids. So I come from, Irish Catholic kind of family. All of my mums, all tend to have 6 kids. She came from a family of 12. And there is something about having cousins nearby because it's like a tribe.
Yeah.
And it meant the older ones watched out for the younger ones, but there'd be an auntie or there'd be someone around who could race someone to hospital if you needed it. So yeah,
that's so true.
I just had my 70th birthday back in Albany, and I invited my lads, and then the cousins came with all their kids, and we ended up with 47 of us, with 24 of them aged between 5 months of age and 16.
Oh, wow. That's so good.
All I ever wanted. So let's get back to you. Now, you made your AFL debut at 18, is that correct?
Yes.
Around then?
Yep.
So in that journey, obviously you were all playing lots of sport as in your childhood. How involved were your mum and dad in that kind of journey?
I always reflect on this a little bit because my dad would say he never missed a game, and I would say I don't think that was true. I think growing up, because there's so many kids and, your parents were working, I mean, they just had to. That's the deal. So we would My memories are that after school and I had footy training on, well, I get on my bike and I had to ride to training. And then when training's finished at whatever time of the night it was, I just had to ride home, and that's the deal. And then on the weekends, sometimes, and this happened a lot actually, where you would rely on other parents to drive you around and make a call, and other families to pitch in. That happened on a regular basis as well, because my dad worked in real estate and then new home sales, and that's a weekend thing. Although he did watch a hell of a lot. And he did the best he can. But I do remember you would always ask for other families and other friends to pitch in. And I wasn't reliant necessarily on... I was told, okay, you're playing a home game, and then, if mum and dad turned up, which they did most of the time, but I just make my own way there and my own way back.
Very, very common, that whole sharing. That's what the village did. We had... pick each other's kids up or shared each other's kids, and we didn't even have a smartphone to sort it out.
Isn't it amazing? You always knew where to go, or you needed to meet someone. I'll meet you here at this pathway in whatever time it was, and then you'd meet, and then you'd ride together to footy training or someone's house.
Yep. Yeah, no. Okay, so which of yours play AFL, and what sort of a sport dad are you? Similar to your dad, not around a lot?
I'm probably too much around.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you've overcorrected.
Yeah,
go on.
I probably have. All my kids play sport, except. So my second oldest, which is Cooper, he was swimming. He is into the arts side of things, and I always had a battle with him personally because he's not the same as me. And we can come back to that at another stage. But that was always a bit of a battle. My oldest son, Lachlan, I think he was a bit of a slow starter when it came into sport, but then he really got going and he's really passionate about it, and I do my best to help him out as much as I can to reach the levels he wants to reach. And my younger son, Oliver's the same thing. And my daughter, Sunny, she's netball and football, and she just really enjoys being involved. But if I go back to how I operate during the week, for example, today in Perth is Monday, and I know after school, my younger son, Ollie, I will join him and one of his friends down the park, and we'll do some skills training, and I'll set out different drills to be able to work on kicking, and today will be ground balls, for example. I've already got that planned out in my mind, what it looks like, and we'll go for an hour. And then my older son, Lachlan, by the time he finishes work, will be after 6, and he'll ask me to do the same. He wants to do some kind of skills. So that's what will happen with those two. And then Tuesday comes around, our youngest again, Ollie, he doesn't have a formal training, but he'll want to do some kind of, we'll break it down to another area. It might be marking. So I'll go down to the park and we'll do an hour of some kind of skill development with him. And then on Wednesday, they've got their own main trainings, and I go about my own fitness in those times, take Sunny to her netball, get involved in it. I don't get involved in her football as much because I'll let the other dads sort that out, but I'm certainly driving and or picking up and being a part of it all. And yeah, as I said, my second oldest son, Cooper, now, he's just in swimming. So I have asked for him to swim with me because I'm swimming a lot these days because of injuries. But he's yet to take me up on that. Although I got him to swim to Rottnest in a family team this year, which I was so proud of.
Yeah, I was just going to check in on that. So you swam for a very special cause. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I Kai Feller is a foundation over in Perth which deals with youth suicide in particular. And it was a young fella who was around our neighbourhood that took his own life, unfortunately. And the family have really got behind starting their own foundation in his honour, and we got behind that this year. I was so grateful. We raised $15,000 to be able to put towards that foundation, and it was with my 3 boys who we all did it with. And swimming to Rottnest is no easy feat. It's 20 Ks.
No, it is 20 Ks.
It's 20 Ks. There was swell and wind, and everybody's frightened at sharks, as you know, over here, Maggie. So that's one of those things you have to get through. But for my son Cooper, he was never doing it with us, but he's a really good swimmer. And I asked him 100 times over, and he said no. And then at one stage I went the reverse. I went the reverse where I said, the reason why, I actually know the reason why you won't do it, and it's because you're scared, and I'm scared. But it's time to man up and and get this done. If it's a fear that's holding you back, then that's one thing you need to conquer. And then he went back at me a few times, and I called him a pussy a few times, Maggie. 2 weeks later, he joined us, and we swam over.
Yeah, I'm looking at that also. That's still a form of motivation for boys? I don't know that that's a really popular one, Shaun, but it got your boy. Now tell me how it felt when you were out, when you got to Rottnest after all of that extra effort and the wind and how good does it feel with your 3 sons and you've just conquered something really big?
It was fantastic. I'd always wanted to do that, and I wanted to see the sense of achievement for them. I've been able to do. I've swum to Rottnest a lot of times, and seeing everyone else being involved and see that sense of achievement. And my sons have been at the Rottnest pub a few times at the end and seen the celebration, but it's a completely different feeling when you've done the hard yards, when you've achieved a goal. And in particular, if I concentrate on Cooper, from now until the end of his days, he can say, I swam to Rottnest. Yeah. And everybody will be like, really? Because it's hard and it's difficult. Yeah. And to see his smile at the end of it, he said, I'll never do this again, Dad. And I went, yeah, no worries. I don't care. You've done it. And just to see how happy he was and the other boys as well. But for him in particular, to see his face at the end of it is well and truly worthwhile.
Do you reckon your kids feel a bit of pressure when they're actually playing football, or if you've been helping them with their skills? I mean, do you reckon that makes it harder for them or kind of easier? What do you reckon?
I reckon my oldest son really struggled with it early days when he started playing for Fremantle in the waffle competition over here. He would have had hopes and dreams of moving on to higher levels, and it didn't work out for him. And then he had a year of being a bit lost. But since then, he's really embraced the level of footy he's playing at. And no, I think he now comes to me and he's asking for advice, and he knows I can help him. And I now feel like I really can help him. And it's good to see. I'm grateful that he reaches out. Number one, he doesn't have to. I don't ask him. I probably did that years ago, by the way.
Yeah.
But he's reaching out and I'm just reinforcing that all this hard work he's doing is paying off. And at the end of last year, for example, for him, he was, as I said, he was lost the previous year, but he ended up having a fantastic year, and his team won the grand final, but he had a massive influence on how things turned out, and the relief and the enjoyment on his face, it was amazing. And it was all because he did the hard work. And when he was asking me to what he needed to do, and I gave him a bit of a roadmap, and I made myself accessible, and I'd drive to his work at lunchtime every Monday and Tuesday, and we just go to, actually it was near Parliament House in WA, and there's hardly any lawn, but we found an area, and at his lunchtime we'd do the skills stuff, and just to see him commit and do it day in, day out, and his game improve, I was so happy for him. And it was quite amazing. And my youngest son is probably kind of seeing it that way, that he needs to do the hard work, but maybe the fact that he thinks he might be living up to something could be a bit of a burden for him at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you like on the sidelines when they're playing? Are you a loud, shouty dad, or are you able to hold it in, or what do you like when your boys are playing or your kids are playing?
Yeah, no, I'm quiet. I'm quiet.
Good.
I'm registering everything that goes on.
Yeah.
So
glad about that.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
I don't say anything in front of the parents. Yes, I go through my youngest son, Ollie, last night. We sat down and went through his game. He's got his video stuff, so we go through things and I point out bits and pieces. The hardest part, though, after a game, Maggie, is to be as positive as possible whilst being honest.
Yeah.
I think I'm still...
Constructive criticism is a balancing act, especially with teenagers.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm still finding my way through that.
Yeah. Okay, so, all right, I'm going to ask you, what do you think you learnt from your own dad about being a dad?
I think my dad's biggest legacy for me was how important family was. And I wonder if I'm doing enough in that space. Because I do find myself busy, And I know from my dad, what I learned from my dad, he was a hard ass. And I think most people back in our day, that every generation gets softer, but he was a hard ass. He never really went off at me about, it's only once he ever went off at me about sport and my football. And that was probably when I was about 17. Other than that, he, enjoyed watching me play. I don't remember getting too much feedback either way, but he was, family was the one thing. We did everything with my cousins. So our weekends would be, apart from playing sport, but say during the week, we'd go to the Melville Water Polo Club and we'd be down there and we'd just be swimming around. Dad would be playing sport, but we'd all be together. Or I'd be diving for crabs down at Mandurah or Rockingham, maybe crayfish over at Garden City with my cousins, and everything was done together. Every single thing was done together in a big group.
Yeah, that's so good.
And I knew I could, and the other thing is my dad, so my oldest brother was always told he needs to look after me. Then Shaun, you need to look after Kelly, who's my sister, then Ben and Tim, and he was really big on those types of lessons.
Yeah. Well, actual fact, we know that's exactly how child development was supposed to happen, is that we let our kids play and be feral, but the older ones are actually biologically wired to watch out for the ones underneath if there's not a grown up there. So your dad was right onto the money. So, okay, so obviously you've chosen to do some things differently to your dad. So do you think of some specific things without throwing your dad under the bus? Like we said, that's exactly what that generation were led to believe is exactly how you need to parent. So what are you doing differently?
Oh, I probably thought about this. I speak to my brother about this. I don't miss a sports game unless, unless my arm's broken and, I can't physically get there for some reason. But, yeah, I think I've become like that. And I think a lot of parents are, and getting back to the other thing, which is a lot of parents are like this until more recently with me, but it was before when every school carnival, swimming, athletics, cross country, you're there. And I think all the parents are like that these days. I don't remember. My mum would come to an athletics carnival, but I don't think, I would never see a dad there. I just never saw it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means because I'm compensating because I felt like I wish he was there more, so therefore I'm not going to miss any one of my kids' sporting events. It doesn't matter if I miss any of their sporting events, but I feel like I need to show them that I'm watching and I'm a part of it and I'm there for them. So I've probably tried to do that a hell of a lot better. I want to make sure, and I don't know if I do this. I know that I don't do this as well as I like, but I want to make sure I have a really strong connection with them so that they can come to me at any stage.
Yeah.
And again, getting back to speaking about my dad, when I was in trouble a few times, like right at the nth degree, when I went and spoke to him, he always had the right answer. And a few times I've kicked myself like, why didn't I feel comfortable enough to go and speak to him earlier? And maybe that was an old school thing where the dad was a bit stronger and there was a little bit of a standoff in that respect. I'm not sure. But I want to make sure I have a relationship where I'm really close to the boys and the girls. I'm not winning that battle at all the time, but that's what my aim is.
I think also we know that, the conditioning around that time is that Dad's main job was to be the provider and the firm policeman of the house. And so
Most
as
definitely.
dads are moving away now, you'll find them, like I say, it's the best social revolution I've ever seen, and that dads are stepping up everywhere. Because I think a bit like you, they might not have been there, and we know that we could step up and be different in that space. Okay, so you've got older kids, but what might be your biggest fear to parenting and raising your kids as they head off into the flying the coop and becoming their own independent selves? Shaun, what's your biggest fear?
Have I done enough to make sure that they're grounded, that they're solid, that they're strong people, and that they've got decency about them? I think that's they're the things that I think about all the. Have I nurtured a decent human being?
Yeah.
You don't want
beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
You go, fuck, is he a wanker? Oh, stop
Yeah,
it.
no.
So because you know what it's like when you've got the kids around home, they can be rude and obnoxious and all that kind of stuff. But what are they like when they're around other people? Are they courteous? Do they shake hands? Do they look people in the eyes? Are they on time? Are they respectful? That's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah. All right. So now we're asking for a specific dad fail, because that's one of the best things we hear, that you can be a good enough dad, but we all muck up. So what might be a good dad fail you might be able to share?
Oh, this is easy for me. So my second son, Cooper, he was always different to me, and we argued black and blue when he was a young teenager, and he was completely different. So obviously I wanted him to play sport, and, he was playing footy early days. He never wanted to do it. I wanted him to be involved with all the boys and, be one of the lads, so to speak, and whatever. And he never was, and we had lots of disagreements. Cooper's gay, and it probably took him it was probably 16 when he came out. And although I kind of knew it beforehand, he would tell me that he's not gay. And then I'd say, well, if you're not, blah, blah, blah. And, he hated me there for a long time, and I've got a long way to go to be able to bridge the gap with him, Maggie. And I'm disappointed. I want to share as much time as I can with him. And I actually rang him before we spoke, and I said, Cooper, I'm doing this podcast. Do you mind if I talk to if you come up, or all kids come up, I'll be speaking about? Do you mind if I talk about your sexuality? Because it's been obviously it was a struggle for me, and I hope I'm doing better towards him. And he was absolutely fine by that. So that has been as a complete fail for me. A complete fail.
Well, I think that's one of the hardest pits that especially in a sport mad family, right? That you're wired to connect with the sport wired kids, and you have a kid who's into the arts and into music and isn't into, and it's one of the common things we've heard over the 2 seasons, that when dads work it out that that's still my son and I've got to work out a way to connect, and when we do, then that relationship can actually move into a really healthy space, because they're still, good, decent humans, even if they're in a world that is still quite judgmental at times. Yeah. And I think you need to put the stick down. I think the very fact you called him to check with him is a sign of incredible respect.
It's so funny. I just, there's still I still think there's a bit of guard. He's a bit guarded towards me sometimes. And, I walk into his room every night and I just tell him I love you, good night, as I love you. Yeah. And I always wonder how much damage we did previously, because we fought a lot, and he got physical towards me a lot. And you could sense that, in hindsight, you would know the anger coming from inside was him not being able to express his sexuality. And, mate, he used to, he'd throw punches at me, and at some stage he was just angry at me. And I totally understand now, and it's something I'm always working on with him.
So every single child wants to be seen, and then heard, and then accepted, and if possible understood, and then loved exactly as they are, not how we would like them to be. So you're on that journey beautifully.
Maggie,
okay, time to.
Can I ask you? I know you've got you're running to time and stuff like that. So one of the things is, I'm conscious that I just made an example before. So Lachlan, the oldest, he'll go, Dad, I do the skills with him on a Monday. So there's a connection piece, or he'll go swimming with him. He might go surfing with me. The youngest son, Ollie, he's like, Dad, can we go down south? I want to go surfing. Yeah, no worries. We'll go to Bali or whatever. And I'm doing his football stuff. And then Sunny, my daughter, she's, the old apple of the eye type of scenario. So I always, it's fine doing something, but I'm still trying to make sure that I'm available for him, but he's not taking it up that often.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the challenge for me at the moment. I don't know if I'm doing it correctly, but any suggestion?
Yeah. Bottom line is just exactly that sometimes it's better in a letter than it is in a conversation.
Okay.
Because there is some wounding between the two of you. They'll probably write a good letter to him that says, mate, I want to connect like I do, through sport, but what way can we connect? Like whatever is special interest in, how can I come along? Is there somewhere? I wanted you to let me know how I can be a better dad to you, because I love you exactly the same as the others. Because what happens for a boy, it often takes a while for them to really think about it and then to work that out. Because if you asked him straight up, he probably wouldn't be able to give it to you. But in a few days or even a week, then he might be able to come up with an idea about how we can connect better. And the very fact that, once again, it's you're not commanding and demanding and you're not quite sure. So therefore, he's the one that needs to give you the guidance on how to connect in that space. But
thank you.
We've got that one. Okay, so now's a big time for a big dad brag. Well, other than the fact that you're amazing at improving all their football skills, do you have one specific parenting wing that you'd like to put a bit of a gold medal on?
A parenting wing. God, I don't know. What I'm real. No. I think a win form. Actually, I don't know. Is a win knowing that people ring me up to say, hey, someone can't. Whatever the boys come over and they're, you've raised a good son.
Yep, that's a win.
I mean, that's probably all I can think
of.
But
it also means, that Meegan was probably a part of that too. So
yeah.
It's kind of a joint one. I think I can't let you take that one alone.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So other than the fact that, I just think you'd have to put the Rotto swim as a number one, big one, I reckon. Because that involved effort,
all
engagement.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a big one. We were able to raise money too, as I said before, but they all chipped in. It wasn't just me. And that was something that was had an impact into the community, and that made them feel $1 million as well. So
that's the biggie. It's not the swim. It's the motivation, the fact that they stepped up for something else that was going to make a difference in the community. That is the win, not the swim.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done. All right, Shaun, you've worked as a development coach and obviously still pretty involved in and around footy. So what advice would you like to share with kind of younger players who are dads, like, who are out there, playing footy and they are dads at the same time? Any advice for them?
So they've got their children, but they're still in the AFL system. Is that what you're thinking?
Yep.
It's important to just savor the moment. And I think the best thing about having kids when you're playing professional sport is you get to take your mind away from what you think is life and death all the time. And it's so intense playing sport. But once you put that to the side and then you walk in the door and you see your children, it's all forgotten. Yeah. And they don't give a shit. Like, I remember, I mean, still to this day, my daughter Sunny, she'll just say, "Oh, you're not even famous. No one knows who you are." And I just have a bit of I have a bit of a laugh, but they don't care if I'm on radio. The kids don't care if you're playing footy. They might enjoy seeing Dad run out there. They don't know why they enjoy him. They just like seeing Dad. So when you get the opportunity to just savor being in and around them and being present, I've learnt that one the hard way. I reckon at times, you got your phone, people are calling you, or you engage in conversation with two other people. But being present is something really, really important, and it's grown more and more on me as I've got older, for sure.
Okay, so what might be the one thing that you want all your 4 kids to have learnt from you, because you are their dad?
Yeah.
Only allowed to be one thing.
Oh, resilience.
Yeah.
That's it.
And final question. If we wind back the clock, 23 and a half years or something, what advice would you give to yourself, your pre-dad self, before you became a dad with what you know now?
Okay, so I think the advice would be, in my mind, if I worked hard enough and got enough money for our family, that we would live this perfect life. And in doing so, you take yourself away from the perfect life, which is being in and around your family. In your mind, you're doing it because tomorrow, the next day, years down the track, you're going to put yourself in a situation where you can spend all this time with them and this is going to be great. We'll all be on the beach together down in Yellingup, and we'll all be doing this because I've done all these hard yards before. That's true in a sense, but you do miss out on a lot if you're chasing that dream. The dream is actually being there with them, holding their hands, walking down the street, going to school, riding your bike with them to school, going to swimming lessons and watch them make a goof of themselves, and getting off, and then, you're toweling them up, and then you're chucking them in the shower, or you're having a shower with the kids and washing their hair and doing all that stuff. I absolutely miss every night giving them a hug, and in particular holding hands. I reckon for some reason that's something that I would savour and turn back the clock. Make sure you make that a priority to do all those physical things, because sooner or later it's going to be done and dusted.
Yeah,
so is your footy
exactly.
career, but you might have missed that part in it.
I love that, the whole concept of if you look at a face of a child who's holding a parent hand, there's just something about it. It's a profound sense of connection, and I think you've definitely done that, Shaun, and you're definitely getting the good enough stamp from me. So thank you,
Maggie.
very, very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, mate.
Shaun McManus, TV and radio presenter, AFL legend, especially for the Dockers in WA. And little known fact, he's twice held the world record for the most amount of bananas put down one's pants. No, seriously, you can Google that one in your own time. He's a true legend. As a dad of 4, our AFL footballer, finally, Shaun had plenty of wisdom to offer us about fatherhood. But let's break it down to the most important 3 points for our good enough dad checklist. Firstly, if you have a child who has different interests and passions to you, it really is worth working hard to find a way to connect to them. Secondly, teaching our kids to have goals and to aim for goals does help to develop grit and perseverance, which helps to develop resilience. And thirdly, set those priorities for loving connections. Remember holding their hands and saying good night, or a bedtime ritual, because one day, you are going to miss them. I'm Maggie Dent, and this is The Good Enough Dad. Please subscribe and rate this podcast, because it means more people will find it.